Hey, what is going on guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the best build and runes for every single AD carry in patch 8.11. So this patch, I've already made a tier list for AD carries, so if you're interested in that, then I'll link that as well in the top right hand corner of the screen, but we're just going to be going over the builds and the runes in this video for AD carries in this patch. So the way that I came up with the builds for this video is I took a look at two different things. So I took a look at stats for the items in this patch, and then I also took a look at what pros were building. So I used those two things combined to come up with the builds in this video. So we're going to start off with Ashe, and we're going to go alphabetically in this video. So for Ashe in this patch, there's two different builds that are going around. The first one is the Korean build, and this is the one that more Korean AD carries are going for in this patch. And it's a Blade of the Ruined King rush into a Runaan's Hurricane and Infinity Edge. And then the build that most players are going for in this patch is the Essence Reaver rush into a Runaan's and then Infinity Edge. So I think that both builds are really good. The Blade of the Ruined King build gives you a little bit more survivability, a little bit more kiting potential. The Essence Reaver build just gives you a lot more flat out damage. So if you're just looking to have an all-in lane, if you're playing in a really aggressive lane, then the Essence Reaver build is going to give you a little bit more damage, and the Blade of the Ruined King build is going to provide you with just a bit more survivability. And then as for the rune on Ashe in this patch, Lethal Tempo, Press the Attack, and Fleet Footwork are all doing well on her. The one that is doing the best though is Lethal Tempo, and that is the one that most Korean players are running right now on Ashe. So next up here is Caitlyn. So for Caitlyn in this patch, there's two different builds. There's the first one, which is more of the Korean build, which is Stormrazor Rush into Rapid Fire Cannon and Infinity Edge. And there's the standard build from previous patches, which is Infinity Edge, Rapid Fire Cannon, and Static Shiv. The Stormrazor Rush on Caitlyn is going to give you a little bit more power in the early game, and then if you do go for Infinity Edge, Static Shiv, and Rapid Fire Cannon, if you go for that build, it is going to allow you to scale a lot better, and it's going to give you a really good 3-item spike. So it kind of does depend on your playstyle and what you're looking to do, but I think the more consistent build is definitely the Stormrazor Rush on Caitlyn. And then for runes in this patch, Fleet Footwork is still the best keystone rune on Caitlyn. So next up here for Corki, even though Corki isn't really being played a ton in this patch, he does have a little bit of a different build. So what people are doing and what's doing best on him in this patch is Trinity Force Rush, that's still very standard, but an Essence Reaver now as his second item, and then after that into a Rapid Fire Cannon. And then for runes on Corki, it's either Fleet Footwork or Press the Attack. Press the Attack if you're looking to play more aggressive in lane, and then Fleet Footwork if you're just looking to sustain and you're looking to be a little bit more mobile. So for Draven in this patch, Bloodthirster into a Stormrazor and Rapid Fire Cannon is what is doing best. With the Bloodthirster buffs in this patch, it's an even better first item now on Draven. A lot of Korean players in previous patches were rushing Bloodthirsters, so with the cost decrease, it just gets that much better in 8.11. For runes on Draven in this patch, it's still Conquer. Conquer is what's doing best. Press the Attack is also doing pretty well, but Conquer is doing slightly better, and it is what most people are taking, so I would still be running Conquer on Draven in 8.11. So for Ezreal in this patch, nothing has changed for the build or for the runes since last patch, so it's still a Manamune Rush into Trinity or Iceborne Gauntlet, and then Archangel and Blade of the Ruined King, and for the runes you're still going to be wanting to take Kleptomancy. So for Jhin in this patch, there's two different builds. There's the crit build and then there's the lethality build. So the crit build consists of Stormrazor Rush into a Rapid Fire Cannon and then Infinity Edge. And then the lethality build is Youmuu's Ghostblade into a Duskblade and then a Rapid Fire Cannon. And then for the runes on Jhin in this patch, Comet is now actually doing better than Fleet Footwork. Now, Fleet Footwork is still doing good on Jhin in this patch, and it is what most players are still running on him, but if you are in an aggressive lane now, if you're in like a Leona Jhin lane, a Xayah Jhin lane, just something that you can play really aggressive in, then taking the Comet is definitely worthwhile now in this patch, and it is going to give you a little bit more lane presence. So for Jinx in this patch, it's either a Stormrazor rush into a Runaan's and then Infinity Edge, or it's just the standard build that you run in previous patches of Infinity Edge into Runaan's and then the Rapid Fire Cannon. It does depend on how you're looking to play Jinx. Stormrazor is going to give you the better 1-item spike, but once you reach 3 items, once you have like Stormrazor, Runaan's, and Infinity Edge, it is going to be a little bit weaker than if you did have Infinity Edge, Runaan's, and Rapid Fire Cannon. So it kind of just does depend on how the game is going and if you want that 1-item spike or if you want the 3-item spike. And then for runes on Jinx, it is still Fleet Footwork that is doing best on her in 8.11. So for Kaisa in this patch, there's 2 different builds depending on what you want. If you want AP, if your team is lacking AP, then you'd go for a Rageblade into a Nashor's and then either Rabadon's or Xayah's. And then if your team is lacking AD, then you'd go for a Rageblade into a Hurricane or an Infinity Edge. And if your team is a good mix of both damage, then I would go for the AP build on Kaisa. That is the one that is performing better on her most of the time. For runes on Kaisa, because of the fleet nerfs, press the attack is also a great option in this patch, so it just does depend on what you want to run. So for Kalista in 8.11, she is actually doing a lot better than in previous patches. Blade of the Ruined King into Runaan's and then Rageblade is what's doing best on her, and with the blade buffs in this patch, it does allow her to hit a slightly earlier power spike in the early game, which does make her a little bit better. And for the runes on Kalista, Lethal Tempo is what you're going to be wanting to take in this patch. So for Kog'maw, we've got 2 different builds in 8.11. You've got your AP build, which is Rageblade into Nashor's and then Runaan's, and then you have your AD build, which is Rageblade into Blade of the Ruined King and then Runaan's. You can change up the build depending on the situation, so if you're lacking AP damage, then Rageblade Nashor's is going to be really good. If you're lacking more AD damage, then Rageblade into Blade of the Ruined King is going to be good. And if the enemy team does have a lot of tanks on their team, then going for Blade of the Ruined King second is going to be the better option. And then for runes on Kog'maw in this patch, it does come down to personal preference, so it's either Lethal Tempo or Fleet Footwork right now. If you are in a harder lane, or if you still like that extra movement speed you get from Fleet Footwork to kite a little bit better, then it's still a good option, but Lethal Tempo is the one that most pro players are running now in this patch, and it is doing a little bit better than Fleet Footwork. So for the build on Lucian in this patch, it's still kind of up in the air as to what is best on him, but what most pro players are running right now in this patch is a Blade of the Ruined King rush into Black Cleaver and then Essence Reaver as your 3rd item. Essence Reaver is still doing good as a rush item on Lucian, and I think it kind of does come down to the lane as well as personal preference. If you're in a harder lane and you're not really going to be looking to all in a ton, then Bork is going to be a really good rush because it's going to give you more sustain in the laning phase, and it's just overall going to be a more consistent rush item. If you are in a lane though to where you can play really aggressive, if you have a support that's going to be able to look for an all-in early on in the game, then going for an Essence Reaver rush is going to give you a lot of all-in potential. And then for runes on Lucian, it's the same as previous patches, going for Press the Attack as your keystone. For Misfortune in 8.11, there's 2 different builds, so either Duskblade into Youmuu's or Youmuu's into Duskblade. It kind of is personal preference for which order you do choose, and then Lord Dominik's as your 3rd item, or it's Stormrazor into Rapid Fire Cannon and Infinity Edge, and it kind of does come down to personal preference as well as what the enemy team comp looks like. If the enemy team comp is really tanky and they do have just a really beefy front line, then I would go for the crit build, but if the enemy team is pretty squishy, if they're not going to be building a lot of armor, then going for the armor pen build, going for the lethality build is what you're going to want to do most of the time. So for runes on Misfortune, there's a lot of different things that are doing well on her. Comet's doing very well, Conquer is also doing very well in this patch, Airy is even doing pretty good. I think it does come down to the lane that you're in. If you are in a lane to where you're going to be able to all in a lot, then Conquer is going to be the better option. If you're in a lane though to where you're going to want to be trying to poke the enemy out more and then looking to kill them, then going for something like Comet or Airy would be the better option. So for Quinn in this patch, she does have a very low play rate for AD carry, so it's kind of hard to come up with what the best build is on her, but what is doing statistically best right now on her is Stormrazor into Static Shiv and then Infinity Edge. And then for runes on Quinn, Fleet Footwork is still what's doing best on her in 8.11. For Sivir, there's two different builds right now, Stormrazor into Rapid Fire Cannon and then Infinity Edge, or Essence Reaver into Rapid Fire Cannon and Infinity Edge. And then for your keystone on Sivir, it's going to be Fleet Footwork still in this patch. For Tristana, not a ton of pro players are actually playing her in this patch, so there's not a ton of information on her, but the few pro players that have been playing her have been finding success with Stormrazor into a Rapid Fire Cannon and then Infinity Edge. And then for the keystone on Tristana, depending on your lane, it's either Fleet Footwork or Press the Attack. Fleet Footwork if you're in more of a passive lane and you just want to be able to sustain in the laning phase and you don't have a ton of kill pressure, and then Press the Attack if you are in a more aggro lane. So for Twitch in 8.11, it's very similar to Jinx, so if you're looking to get that one item spike, then going for a Stormrazor into Runaan's and then Infinity Edge is what you'd be looking to do. But if you're playing more so for the 3 item spike, if you're just not doing too well in lane and the one item of Stormrazor, when you pick it up, it's just not really gonna matter, then playing for the 3 item spike of Runaan's, Infinity Edge, and Static Shiv is what you'd be looking to do. And then for runes on Twitch in this patch, it's either Fleet Footwork or Press the Attack depending on your lane. And then Hail of Blades is actually not doing very well on Twitch. It does seem like a really nice keystone for him, but the 5 seconds of out of combat there just doesn't make it the best rune like throughout the game, and especially for the laning phase. I think there is also a bug with it right now on Twitch if I'm not mistaken, so just don't be taking Hail of Blades in this patch because it's just not very good on him. So for Varus, he's got the same build as Kaisa, so the AP build of Rageblade into Nashers and then Deathcap that's doing very well on Varus, and that's statistically his best build in this patch. There's also Rageblade into Blade of the Ruined King and Runaan's. That one is also pretty good on Varus, and it's just going to depend on the situation as to which one you run. And then for the keystone on Varus, it's kind of all over the place here, so some pro players are running Press the Attack, some Fleet Footwork, and then some Lethal Tempo. Press the Attack is what's doing statistically best in solo queue for this patch though on Varus. So for Vayne in 8.11, her build path has actually changed up quite a bit. The one that is statistically performing the best, and the one that a lot more players are starting to pick up now in this patch, is Blade of the Ruined King into a Rageblade and then Phantom Dancer. So with the Bork buffs, it makes it a pretty good rush item now on Vayne, and then Rageblade second actually does give you a pretty nice mid-game power spike there. And then for runes on Vayne, it's going to depend a lot on your lane, so Fleet Footwork is the one that does have the best win percent in this patch. However, Press the Attack is the one that most pro players are running in this patch, and it is going to give you a little bit better of an early game and a little bit more kill pressure in the laning phase, so it does come down to the lane you're in this patch as to which one you want to run on Vayne. And then last but not least, Xayah for this patch is going for 2 different builds. The first one is Stormrazor into Rapid Fire Cannon and Infinity Edge, and the other one is Essence Reaver, Rapid Fire Cannon, and Infinity Edge. Both builds are doing very well on Xayah in this patch, so this kind of does come down to personal preference as to which one you want to run, and I think that both are very good on her for 8.11. And then for runes on Xayah, both the Fleet Footwork and Press the Attack are doing pretty well on her in this patch. Now, most pro players are running Press the Attack now in 8.11, but you can still run Fleet Footwork and have good success with that too. So that is going to be all for this video, guys. Those were the builds and runes for every single AD carry in patch 8.11. If you do think that there's a different build that I missed in this video, or there's a build that you've been trying out that you think is really good, then be sure to let me know down in the comments below. But with that being said, guys, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.